I found them lying on the floor, both of them not moving. For a moment, I thought they were gone. A week later, I wished I had never learned the truth. It was supposed to be a quick visit. I hadn't heard from my parents in 2 days, which wasn't completely unusual, but something felt off. A quiet kind of wrong. The kind you can't explain, but can't ignore either. So I drove over. The house looked normal. Lights off. Curtains half drawn. Nothing out of place. Until I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Not strong, but strange. Heavy, like the air hadn't moved in days. Mom. I called out. No answer. Dad. Silence. My chest tightened. I stepped inside slowly, my footsteps echoing too loudly in the stillness. Everything felt frozen, paused, like time had stopped in this house. Then I saw them, on the living room floor, side by side, not moving. For a second, just 1 second, I froze, because my mind refused to accept what I was seeing. Then instinct took over. Mom, I shouted, rushing forward. I dropped to my knees beside her, my hands shaking as I touched her shoulder. Cold. Too still. Dad, wake up. Nothing. No response. No movement. Panic surged through me, sharp and uncontrollable. I grabbed my phone, my fingers barely working as I dialed emergency services. My parents, they're unconscious. Please, hurry. My voice didn't sound like mine. It sounded distant, broken. I stayed on the floor between them, checking for anything, breathing, a pulse, any sign of life. Faint, barely there, but there. Stay with me, I whispered. Though I didn't know who I was saying it to, minutes felt like hours. The silence in that room pressed against me, suffocating. Every second stretched longer than the last. Then, finally, sirens. Loud, piercing, real. Paramedics rushed in, voices sharp and urgent, pushing me aside as they worked. Questions I couldn't answer. How long have they been like this? I don't know. Any medical history? I don't know. Everything blurred. Hands moving fast. Equipment. Commands. Chaos. They loaded my parents onto stretchers, oxygen masks in place, wires and monitors attached. I followed outside, my legs barely holding me up. Are they going to be okay? I asked, my voice trembling. One of the paramedics glanced at me briefly. We're doing everything we can. Not yes, not no, just enough to keep hope alive. I climbed into the ambulance, my heart pounding as the doors slammed shut. The ride to the hospital felt endless. I sat there staring at them, still, silent, unreachable, machines beeping softly around us. I kept thinking the same thing over and over. This can't be happening. This isn't real. But it was. And deep down, beneath the fear, beneath the shock, there was something else. A question, one I couldn't answer yet. Why? What could have possibly caused this? At that moment, I thought the worst part was finding them like that. I was wrong, because I had no idea that the truth waiting for me in the days ahead would be far more devastating than what I had just seen. The hospital smelled like antiseptic and fear. Bright lights, cold walls, endless waiting. I sat outside the ICU, my hands clenched together, replaying the moment I found them over and over again. Every detail, every second, as if I had missed something, as if there had been a sign, a warning. A nurse finally approached me. They're stable, she said. The breath I had been holding finally released. Stable. Not gone. Not yet. Can I see them? I asked, only one at a time. I nodded quickly. Anything was enough. They let me see my mom first. She looked smaller somehow. Fragile. Machines surrounded her, monitors blinking, tubes running from her arms. I stepped closer, my chest tightening. Mom, I whispered. No response, just the steady rhythm of the monitor. Proof she was still there, but far away. When I stepped out, they took me to my dad. Same room, same silence, same stillness. Seeing them like that, it didn't feel real, like they were paused between two worlds. Later, a doctor finally called me in. We ran tests, he said carefully. There were high levels of sedatives in their system. I frowned. Sedatives? He nodded. Enough to cause unconsciousness. Possibly worse if they hadn't been found. My stomach dropped. You mean this wasn't an accident? He hesitated. That hesitation said everything. It doesn't appear to be. The room felt colder. Heavy sedation like this usually comes from intentional intake, he added. Intentional. The word echoed in my head. No, that didn't make sense. My parents weren't reckless. They weren't careless. They wouldn't just do something like that. Are you saying they tried to? I couldn't finish the sentence. I'm saying we don't know yet, he replied. But it's something we need to consider. I left his office in a daze. Nothing made sense anymore. Not the silence in the house. Not the way they were found. Not this. I sat back down in the waiting area, staring at the floor, trying to put the pieces together. And then a memory surfaced. Small, easy to ignore. Until now. A week ago, my mom had called me. Her voice sounded different. Tired. Distant. There's something we need to tell you, she had said, but I was busy. I told her we'd talk later. I never called back. Now, sitting there in the hospital, that moment replayed in my mind like a warning I had ignored. There's something we need to tell you. My chest tightened, because whatever it was important enough that they both ended up here. Unconscious, fighting to survive. And for the first time, I realized this wasn't just about what happened. It was about what I didn't know, and what I was about to find out. They woke up 3 days later, one after the other. Weak, quiet, different. I was there when my mom opened her eyes. Relief hit me so hard I almost cried. Mom. She looked at me, guilt filling her expression before she even spoke. That's when I knew. This wasn't an accident. Why? I asked softly. Her lips trembled. She looked away. We didn't know how to tell you, she whispered. My heart tightened. Tell me what? She didn't answer. Instead, she looked toward the door, as if waiting. Moments later, my dad was wheeled in. He looked just as broken, just as guilty. And that's when everything changed. There's something you need to know, he said quietly. The same words. The ones I had ignored a week ago. I felt my chest tighten. What is it? Silence. Then, you're not our biological child. The world didn't shatter. It didn't explode. It just stopped. What? My voice barely existed. We were afraid to tell you. My mom said, tears slipping down her face. We thought you'd hate us. I stared at them, at the people who had raised me, loved me, protected me. You almost died because of that. I whispered. My dad looked down. We thought if we lost you after telling the truth. He couldn't finish. But I understood. Fear, guilt, years of hiding something they didn't know how to face. I took a step back. Everything I thought I knew about myself felt uncertain, shaken, but not gone. Because one thing hadn't changed. They were still my parents. Not by blood, but by every moment that mattered. I looked at them again. Really looked this time. You should have told me, I said quietly. My mom nodded through tears. I know. Silence filled the room again, but it wasn't heavy like before. Just honest. And as painful as the truth was, I realized something even harder. They hadn't almost lost me because of the truth. They almost lost everything because they were too afraid to speak it.